Emergency Protocol Alpha 9. All cadets evacuate immediately. Commander Kael Thas's voice cracked through the Academy's intercom system with an urgency that made 43 cadets from 37 different species freeze in their tracks. Vorkon Cub loose in common area. Repeat. Apex Predator Containment Breach. Cadet Vexia's 3 hearts stopped simultaneously. Her clawed hand slammed the crimson distress beacon on the wall, activating every emergency protocol in the Galactic Military Academy's 2-century history. Through the transparent aluminum viewing panel, she could see it. The nightmare that had escaped from the xenobiology lab. A Vorkon cub, barely 3 months old, stood in the center of the common area, its obsidian scales rippling with bioluminescent threat displays that had evolved over millions of years to freeze prey in place. It was working. Every single cadet stood paralyzed, their species-specific fear responses activating in perfect synchronization. The Xylarian cadet's skin had turned the white of biological shutdown. The Draxian military prodigies, trained since birth for combat, were trembling so violently their exoskeletons rattled. Even Jotaro, the Academy's top combat specialist, whose species had conquered 12 star systems, had his primary and secondary hearts beating at stroke-inducing rates. The cub turned its massive head toward the frozen cadets, opened its triple-hinged jaw, and released a growl that registered 127 decibels on the emergency sensors. The sound was universally recognized across 847 known species as the kill signal, the last thing countless prey animals heard before death. And then someone laughed. Emma Johnson, the human maintenance worker in her faded blue coveralls, was crouched down at eye level with the apex predator, making kissy noises like she was calling a pet. "Who's a grumpy little murder floof?" Emma cooed, extending her soft, clawless hand toward the creature that could disembowel a Craxian war beast in 2.3 seconds. "Are you lost, baby? Did you get away from your mama?" Commander Kael Thas felt his 3 stomachs drop. "Human, retreat immediately. That's a direct order." Emma didn't even glance toward the intercom. She was too busy wiggling her fingers at the cub, whose pupils had dilated to focus on the movement. The creature's razor-sharp claws, each capable of piercing military-grade battle armor, flexed outward. Its muscles coiled for the killing strike that had ended the lives of over 40,000 documented prey animals across the galaxy. "Oh, you've got such tiny murder mittens," Emma baby-talked, completely oblivious to the fact that those mittens could cleave through reinforced steel. "Yes, you do. Yes, you do." Vexia's translator chip stuttered, unable to process what she was witnessing. Her xenobiology training screamed that this was impossible. Humans were classified as persistence predators. They shouldn't completely lack the biological fear response that every sapient species possessed. The Vorkon cub was literally designed by evolution to trigger every survival instinct in every known form of life. The human was making googly eyes at it. "Commander," Vexia whispered into her comm unit, her voice breaking with disbelief. She's approaching it. Permission to activate emergency tranquilizer systems?" "Negative," Kael Thas barked. "The humans in the line of fire, all weapons systems on standby. Medical teams, prepare for mass casualty protocols." The cub's growl intensified, a sound that translated to "threat display imminent" in the universal predator language that transcended species barriers. Its bioluminescent scales flashed the crimson pattern that meant preparing to kill. Emma tilted her head and grinned. "Aw, somebody's hangry. When's the last time you ate, sweetie?" This was it. This was how the Galactic Military Academy would experience its first mass fatality event in 200 years. The human was about to be torn apart by an apex predator, while 43 cadets watched, paralyzed by the very instincts that had kept their species alive for millennia. The cub lunged forward. Emma opened her arms, and the Vorkon cub, the most dangerous predator in known space, the creature whose species had evolved to be the perfect killing machine, collapsed into the human's embrace and started making a rumbling sound that the emergency sensors registered as a 95 decibel purr. "There we go," Emma said, scratching behind the cub's auditory sensors with the casual ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "You just needed a hug, didn't you?" "Yes, you did, you precious little death machine." Commander Kael'thas stared at the scene unfolding through the viewing panel, his command training completely failing to provide protocols for human violates fundamental laws of predator-prey dynamics. In his 300 years of military service, spanning 47 combat zones and 12 diplomatic disasters, he'd never encountered a situation his training hadn't prepared him for. Until now. "Activate remote containment field," Commander Kael'thas ordered, his tactical display lighting up with emergency protocols. "Isolate the threat and, Commander, the human is still in the containment zone," his operations officer interrupted. "Then move her." Emma had already picked up the Vorkon cub, all 40 kilograms of apex predator, and was cradling it against her chest like it was a particularly chunky house cat. The cub's threat display intensified, its scales flashing patterns that had evolved specifically to trigger flight responses in anything with a functioning nervous system. "Oh, you're doing your scary face?" Emma cooed, adjusting her grip as the cub squirmed. "That's very intimidating. I'm so scared." Roar. The cub's claws extended fully. 12 centimeters of molecularly sharpened death that field reports confirmed could pierce Draxian battle armor. They pressed against Emma's coveralls, which were rated for absolutely nothing except mild chemical splashes. "Look at your tiny murder mittens." Emma laughed, gently pressing one of the claws with her thumb. "You could do so much damage with these, couldn't you?" "Yes, you could." Vexia's translator was having a catastrophic failure trying to reconcile what she was seeing with her xenobiology training. "Commander," she reported, her voice climbing 3 octaves higher than regulation allowed. "Vorkon cubs kill on instinct. The threat display she's witnessing should trigger immediate disembowelment. The probability of survival after physical contact is 0.03%. The cub's behavioral patterns indicate—" "I can see the behavioral patterns, Cadet," Kael'thas snapped, watching his view screen in horror as the human booped the cub on its nose. Across the common area, Jitaro had activated his combat computer, running probability calculations at maximum processing speed. "Mortality odds, 99.97%, he announced to the frozen cadets around him. "Expected time to fatal injury, 1.4 seconds. Recommended action, immediate retreat to secondary safe zone." Nobody moved. They couldn't. The Vorkon cub's presence had triggered such deep-rooted survival instincts that conscious thought had shut down in favor of the ancient calculus of predator avoidance. Emma, meanwhile, was examining the cub's face with the intensity of a xenobiologist and the demeanor of someone shopping for groceries. "Hey, buddy, when's the last time someone fed you? Your scales are looking a little dull here, and your third eyelid's showing stress patterns." Commander Kael'thas felt his stomach twist. The human had just identified distress markers that the Academy's trained xenobiology staff had missed during the cub's weekly health screenings. "Security team to common area," he ordered. "Tranquilizer protocols, maximum dosage. We need that cub sedated before—" The doors burst open and 6 security officers stormed in. Weapons raised, each loaded with enough tranquilizer to drop a fully grown Craxian battle tank. Emma stepped between them and the cub, her face shifting from nurturing to something considerably less friendly. "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Nobody's shooting anything?" "Ma'am, please step aside," the security chief said, his weapon trained on the cub. "That creature is a Class A threat to all biological life forms in this facility. He's a scared baby who got separated from his mom." Emma protested, turning sideways to shield the cub with her body. "Look at him. He's terrified. He's not dangerous. He's just reacting to everyone, acting like prey animals." "Not dangerous?" Vexia's voice cracked through the comm system. "Humans lack the biological framework to assess predator threat levels. Your species' defective fear response is compromising your judgment." The Vorkon cub, perhaps startled by all the shouting, opened its massive jaws and attempted to bite Emma's shoulder, the standard Vorkon kill response to perceived threats. Emma booped its nose again. The cub blinked all 3 sets of eyelids in rapid confusion, the bite attempt forgotten as it processed this completely unprecedented response to its attack behavior. "No biting?" Emma said firmly, using the exact tone she'd use with a misbehaving puppy. "We don't bite our friends." The universal predator-prey response, refined over billions of years of evolution across hundreds of worlds, had just completely failed for the first time in recorded history. Commander Kael'thas opened a direct channel to Academy Director Zillax. "Sir, we have a situation that's beyond my operational parameters." "I'm watching the live feed, Commander," Zillax replied, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose entire understanding of biology was collapsing in real time. I don't have protocols for this. The human is exhibiting behavioral patterns that contradict every established principle of interspecies dynamics." Emma had sat down cross-legged on the floor, the Vorkon cub now curled in her lap, its purring registering on seismic sensors in the sub-basement. She was scratching behind its auditory ridges while humming something the translator identified as Earth Children's Lullaby. 43 cadets remained frozen. 6 security officers stood with weapons raised, unable to fire without hitting the human. Commander Kael'thas stared at his tactical display, which was flashing error messages because none of its threat assessment algorithms had a category for apex predator being used as therapy animal. And Emma Johnson, maintenance worker 3rd class, looked up at the security team and smiled. "Does anyone know where this little guy's mom is? Because he's definitely ready for feeding time." Professor Zillax arrived at a speed that violated several Academy safety regulations, his forearms gesticulating wildly as he processed the scene through the viewing panel. 40 years of xenobiology expertise, 12 published papers on predator-prey dynamics, and a galactic reputation for understanding interspecies behavioral patterns. All of it crumbling as he watched a human treat a Vorkon cub like a stuffed toy. "This is impossible," he breathed, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid-fire speech. "Humans lack the biological architecture for predator recognition protocols. They should be dead. They should be so dead right now." Emma looked up at the viewing panel where the professor's face was pressed against the glass. "Oh, hey, are you the xenobiology guy? Great. Can you tell me what this little dude eats? He's clearly hungry." "Hungry?" Professor Zillax's voice climbed into frequencies that hurt. That creature's threat displays indicate. "He's scared because you're all acting like prey," Emma interrupted, standing up with the cub still cradled in her arms. The movement should have triggered the cub's kill reflex. Instead, it nuzzled against her shoulder, its purring intensifying. "Look at him. His scales are stress-patterned, his breathing's elevated, and he keeps looking for an exit. He's not hunting, he's panicking." The cub's bioluminescence had indeed shifted from threat red to a softer amber pattern that Professor Zillax's expertise identified as comfort? No, that couldn't be right. Vorkon cubs didn't experience comfort around non-parental organisms. That's not how apex predators functioned. The maternal Vorkon is in Lab 7. Vexia reported from her frozen position, her voice shaking. Separated during routine enclosure cleaning. Cub escaped through ventilation system approximately 14 minutes ago. Okay, so he's lost and hungry, and everyone's freaking out at him, Emma said, adjusting her grip as the cub's weight shifted. She was now casually carrying 40 kilograms of galactic death machine like someone might carry a bag of potatoes. Does he need formula? Meat? What's the feeding schedule for babies this age? Professor Zillax felt his 3 brains struggling to process basic language. You can't just... That's not how. Humans don't have the biological framework to interpret cross-species infant distress signals. Sure we do, Emma said, examining the cub's eyes with professional efficiency. See how his third eyelid's partially extended? That's stress. And this color here? She pointed to a patch of scales near the cub's shoulder. That's not threat display. That's I want my mom. Back home, we call this don't run from dogs common sense. You don't trigger their chase instinct by acting like prey. Combat instructor R. Hill appeared at Professor Zillax's side, his combat computer still running failure diagnostics. My protocols? Every tactical response should have activated. The human should have triggered the cub's predatory sequence 17 different ways. Nothing in my training explains this. It's not predatory sequence, Emma called out, apparently having excellent hearing. It's fear response. He's a baby. Babies get scared when everyone around them is panicking. Behavioral specialist Sinara joined the growing crowd of experts at the viewing panel, her datapad flashing error messages. The bonding patterns are non-species specific. We don't have classification for that. Every species bonds within specific biochemical parameters. Humans shouldn't be able to interpret Vorkon behavioral cues. The cub made a sound that the emergency sensors registered as a 95 decibel death rattle, the noise adult Vorkons made when consuming live prey. Oh, you're really hungry, huh? Emma cooed, apparently recognizing contentment where everyone else heard impending doom. Let's get you back to Mama before you eat my coveralls. She started walking toward the exit, the Vorkon cub purring like a malfunctioning fusion reactor in her arms. The security team scrambled out of her way, weapons still raised but completely useless against a threat that had been neutralized by head scratches. Professor Zillax's world was ending. In his mind, he was rapidly recalculating everything he knew about biology, behavior, and the fundamental laws of predator-prey dynamics. 847 species in the Galactic Council. 847 species that had never, in their entire evolutionary history, developed the concept of taming dangerous animals. And here was a human doing it by accident, on her lunch break, while complaining about needing to finish mopping the floors. Someone tell me where Lab 7 is, Emma said. This baby needs his mom. Lab 7's reinforced doors slid open, revealing the parent Vorkon, a fully grown specimen that made the cub look like a harmless toy. 3 meters of apex predator evolution, capable of hunting prey across dimensions, with a kill record that spanned 47 star systems. The creature's threat display activated immediately, scales flashing patterns that had caused diplomatic incidents when shown on public broadcasts. Emma walked right in. "Hey there, Mama," she said cheerfully, completely ignoring the fact that she was approaching the most feared predator in known space. "Your baby got out?" I think he's ready for lunch. The parent Vorkon's massive head swiveled toward Emma, its triple jaws opening to reveal rows of teeth that could crush starship hull plating. Professor Zillax, watching from the reinforced observation deck with every other staff member, activated every emergency protocol simultaneously. Emma set the cub down. It scrambled toward its parent, making happy chirping sounds that the translator rendered as found food bringer. The parent Vorkon's threat display intensified. Emma should have been dead before her neurons could fire a final thought. Instead, she held out her hand, palm up, and made a soft clicking noise with her tongue. The adult Vorkon sniffed her hand, its biochemical sensors analyzing her scent for threat markers. Finding none, because humans apparently didn't produce fear pheromones like sensible species, the creature's scales gradually shifted from threat red to curiosity blue. Emma scratched under its jaw. The universe's most feared predator closed all 3 sets of eyes and leaned into the contact. "There we go," Emma murmured. "You were worried about your baby, weren't you?" "Yeah, he's fine. Just got lost and scared." Professor Zillax's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his recording device. "I'm documenting this because no one will ever believe it," he whispered into the recorder. "Human exhibiting cross-species communication with apex predator. 0 defensive behavior, 0 fear response. Predator exhibiting... I don't even have terminology for this." Commander Kael'thas appeared at his side, his command tablet already displaying emergency requests. "Professor, I need the human behavioral database immediately. Every file, every study, everything we have on their species." "Already pulling it, Commander." Professor Zillax's screens filled with data. His eyes widened as he scrolled through human history. By the Council, they domesticated wolves. They turned apex predators into pets for companionship. What? Vexia leaned over his shoulder, reading the files. This can't be accurate. They domesticated Earth's large predatory felines? For emotional support? Some humans keep bears. Professor Zillax continued, his voice hollow. Bears. They bond with predators for fun. It's a recreational activity for them. Emma had now somehow convinced the parent Vorkon to roll onto its back for belly rubs, a position that should be physiologically impossible for a creature with their skeletal structure. The cub was nursing happily while Emma cooed at both of them. "Guys," Emma called out toward the observation deck, "do you not have pets out here, like at all?" The silence from 47 staff members and 43 cadets was deafening. "You guys never had pets?" Emma's face fell into genuine sadness. That's actually really sad. Pets are like... they're the best part of life. Vexia found her voice, though it came out several octaves higher than intended. "Human Emma, how do you override your survival instincts? Every species has biological imperatives that prevent suicidal interaction with apex predators." Emma looked genuinely confused by the question. "Override them? We don't override them. We just ignore the dumb ones?" She shrugged. "I mean, yeah, my brain's like big scary teeth. But my brain also tells me I can't eat an entire pizza alone, and I prove that wrong every Friday." Commander Kael'thas was already drafting protocols. "Effective immediately, I'm authorizing development of human-predator interaction protocols. Professor Zillax, you're heading the research team." "Commander, I have no idea where to even begin." "Start with the human," Kael'thas said firmly. "Emma Johnson is hereby appointed as informal xenobiology consultant. Full access to relevant facilities." Emma looked up from where she was playing peekaboo with the Vorkon cub. "Wait, what? I just cleaned the floors." Not anymore, Professor Zillax said, his scientific curiosity overriding his existential crisis. Human Emma, would you be willing to teach cadets your threat assessment methods? Threat assessment? Emma laughed, the sound echoing through the lab as the adult Vorkon nuzzled her shoulder. I don't assess threats. I just think they're cute. Jataro's combat computer finally finished its analysis and displayed a single conclusion. Human threat assessment protocols does not compute. The Galactic Military Academy's entire understanding of biology, behavior, and survival instincts was being rewritten in real time. And the human responsible was currently making silly faces at a creature that had personally ended 3 interstellar conflicts through sheer intimidation. Professor Zillax began typing new protocols with trembling hands, already knowing that his next 40 years of research had just been defined by a single question. How did humans break every rule of evolution and survive? 3 weeks later, the Galactic Military Academy's curriculum included mandatory courses on species without predator fear response, understanding human behavioral anomalies. Commander Kael'thas had personally authored the Human Intuition Exception Protocols, a document that essentially boiled down to, if a human says it's safe, override your instincts and trust them, no matter how wrong it feels. Professor Zillax's paper, Humans, the Apex Predator Social Species, had been downloaded 847 million times across the galactic network. His conclusion, that humans had essentially hacked evolution by befriending everything that should kill them, was causing existential crises in biology departments on 47 worlds. The Academy had quietly begun recruiting human consultants for their dangerous species containment teams. Turns out, when you needed to transport a Craxian deathworm or relocate a Vexian mind shredder, having a human who'd just walk up and say, "Hey buddy, want a snack?" was significantly more effective than tranquilizer protocols and armed escorts. Emma, for her part, had returned to her regular maintenance duties, though now she had a shadow. The Vorkon cub had imprinted on her completely and spent most days curled up in her mop bucket, occasionally batting at the mop strands like they were the galaxy's most interesting prey. You know what he needs? Emma said to Vexia, who'd been assigned as her liaison after requesting human threat assessment training 12 times. A squeaky toy. Do you guys have squeaky toys in space? Vexia checked her datapad, which now included a section labeled Human Pet Supply Requests. We will now. I've already contacted 7 different manufacturers. Emma grinned, scratching behind the cub's auditory ridges. He'd grown significantly in 3 weeks, now large enough to be classified as a juvenile threat. The cadets still gave him a wide berth, their instincts screaming danger every time he wandered past. Emma had named him Fluffy. All right, Murder Floof, I gotta finish this hallway before shift ends, Emma said, standing up and stretching. Same time tomorrow? Fluffy responded with a growl that registered 114 decibels, a sound of pure contentment that the translator rendered as affection confirmed. Every cadet in the hallway flinched. Emma just laughed. Yeah, love you too, buddy. She returned to mopping, whistling an old Earth tune that her grandmother had taught her. Fluffy pounced on the mop head, his developing hunting instincts channeled into attacking cleaning supplies instead of living prey. His mother, watching from Lab 7's observation window, made a rumbling sound that Professor Zillax's instruments struggled to classify. It took him 3 hours to realize it was laughter. The universe was quietly adjusting to a new reality. Humans didn't just survive alongside apex predators. They turned them into friends. They domesticated the undomesticable. They looked at evolution's most perfectly designed killing machines and said, "Oh, who's a good boy?" And somehow, impossibly, it worked. Commander Kael Thas watched Emma disappear around the corner, the Vorkon cub trotting behind her like an oversized puppy, and updated his personal log. Day 23 of human integration. Previous assessment confirmed, humans don't redefine dangerous. They redefine impossible. In the common area, 43 cadets from 37 species were slowly learning that sometimes the most effective survival strategy wasn't following your instincts. It was following the human who ignored hers. Vexia looked down at her datapad, where a new memo had just appeared from command. Effective immediately. All xenobiology programs to include human consultation. Priority recruitment, Earth sector. She watched Emma round the corner, heard her cheerful voice echoing down the hallway. "Come on, Fluffy, let's go clean the cafeteria." And realized something profound. The galaxy hadn't just discovered a new species. It had discovered a species that made friends with nightmares. And somehow, that was the most terrifying and wonderful thing the universe had ever seen.